Listen to this family. They all had passports. Do you have a passport? How many dreams do you need before you apply for one? That's a distinguishing factor right there. Remember at the very beginning of the dream, I said that the Lord showed me that nuclear war is coming to America. And for some, the transition will be successful, and for others, not successful. You do know that Mexico is a sovereign country. Mexico is not obliged to open its borders to Americans just because Americans have decided not to implement their border policies from Mexico. Mexico's not obliged to open their borders to a country that just a few years ago was mocking them and building a wall. Keep them out. That's right. Now all of a sudden you want to flow that way. And Mexico's like, that's great. We still operate customs here properly. Do you have a passport? Then you don't have a passport. Then they tell you, please step out of line. We're processing those who have legitimate documents that sovereign nations use to cross borders. So if Mexico is the closest place for some to flee to, you get to decide what your fleeing experience is going to be like. If you end up going free of charge to Mexico in blacked out cars driven by cool-headed people, you have to admit that that is an exclusive experience. And that's because you could end up fleeing on foot by night, which is tiring and very frustrating and scary if you're a female or a guy who doesn't know how to fight. You might end up having to take one of these rural buses. You might end up having to hitchhike, which could be dangerous. Or you could end up going with other people, but because they're not prepared, it could be a very annoying and a soul-shredding experience. People who are crying, people who are stressed the whole way, people who are working on your nerves. Or you could end up going the way I was going. I had my own passport. I'm not a child, so nobody was holding my passport. I had everything provided for me. And I was able to thank God in this dream for the way that he was taking me to safety. He was making my transition easier and not harder than it had to be. This woman in the dream, the mom, had packed every conceivable thing that a family needs to start over in a new country and not draw attention to themselves by going and having to buy this and having to buy that, and also not having to spend money. This woman had packed everything down to spoons. She had spoons, plate, flatware, her good silverware. She had taken everything that was not nailed down and packed it into the vans, especially her van and the last van, so that she could furnish her new Mexican house out of her old house and save them from spending money. This family did not have a house in Mexico. They were simply going to cross. This is what God downloaded in my heart. They're going to cross the border. They're going to live in a hotel. They're going to keep a low profile. They're going to make a few inquiries. This man and the Hispanic friend who spoke the language, and they're going to buy whatever they find that works for them on the spot. All of this, the Lord told me this. And so I never said a thing to these people while I was in their midst, beyond polite conversation. I didn't have to ask them a single thing, but God gave me the entire plan and told me, go with them. And so the situation was all right with me.